The Cold War. A time of fear, tension, and uncertainty. A time when the world teetered on the brink of nuclear destruction. A time when the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse, each side vying for dominance and control. But even though the Cold War officially ended in 1991 with the collapse of the Soviet Union, its influence still lingers. It still shapes our modern thinking about politics, about power, about conflict. The legacy of the Cold War can be seen in the way we view our enemies. We still have a tendency to demonize those who oppose us, to see them as a threat to our way of life. We still see the world in terms of us versus them, of good versus evil. The Cold War taught us to be suspicious of anyone who doesn't share our beliefs, our values, our way of life. The legacy of the Cold War can also be seen in the way we approach diplomacy. We still rely on the threat of force to achieve our goals, to bend others to our will. We still see negotiation as a sign of weakness, as a last resort when all other options have failed. The Cold War taught us that the only way to deal with our enemies is through strength, through intimidation, through the constant threat of violence. The legacy of the Cold War can even be seen in the way we view ourselves. We still see ourselves as the defenders of freedom, as the champions of democracy. We still see ourselves as the shining beacon of hope in a dark and dangerous world. The Cold War taught us that we are the good guys, that we are fighting for what is right, for what is just. But perhaps the most lasting legacy of the Cold War is the way it has shaped our thinking about power. We still believe that the only way to maintain our position in the world is through military might, through economic dominance, through political manipulation. We still see power as a zero-sum game, as a never-ending struggle for supremacy. And so we continue to build our arsenals, to expand our influence, to assert our dominance over others. We continue to see the world as a battlefield, as a place where only the strong survive. We continue to see politics as a game of winners and losers, of allies and enemies, of us against them. The Cold War may be over, but its shadow still looms large over our modern thinking about politics. It still shapes the way we view the world, the way we interact with others, the way we see ourselves. And until we can break free from its influence, until we can learn to see the world in a different light, we will continue to be trapped in a cycle of fear, tension, and uncertainty. The enduring influence of the Cold War is also evident in our technological advancements and the militarization of space. The race to dominate space began as a Cold War contest and has since evolved into a new frontier of strategic significance. Nations continue to invest heavily in satellite technology and space exploration, driven by the desire to maintain superiority and surveillance capabilities. This space race mentality underscores the persistent Cold War-era mindset of viewing technological progress through the lens of competition and conflict. Moreover, the Cold War has left a lasting impact on global alliances and international relations. Many of today's geopolitical alliances and rivalries have roots in the Cold War era. NATO and other military coalitions were initially formed to counter the Soviet threat, and have since adapted to new global challenges. These alliances continue to shape international policies and responses to global crises, reflecting the lingering strategic thinking established during the Cold War. The economic landscape of the world also bears the marks of the Cold War. The era saw the rise of competing economic ideologies, capitalism in the West and communism in the East, shaping global trade practices and economic policies. Even after the collapse of the Soviet Union, these ideological differences influenced the structure of modern economies and international trade agreements, leading to a world where economic powerhouses often align based on their historical Cold War allegiances and economic philosophies. Lastly, the Cold War has left an indelible mark on cultural and social dynamics globally. Propaganda and cultural exchange programs from the era have had long-lasting effects on the arts, sports, and education. Many cultural perceptions and stereotypes about other nations were solidified during this time, influencing how people view foreign cultures and how nations engage in cultural diplomacy today. This cultural legacy underscores the pervasive influence of Cold War-era thinking on contemporary global interactions. And that's all for today's video on the legacy of the Cold War. If you enjoyed this content, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more insightful discussions on history and its impact on our present. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.